G'day, back again after a croaky week off, and the frog's still hanging around, unfortunately. First up tonight, most Australians would probably be blissfully unaware that tens of thousands of Sri Lankan-born Tamils are living peacefully in this country, thousands of kilometres from the violence that's been plaguing their homeland for decades. In recent months, however, the terror and anguish experienced by families in Sri Lanka has been visited on their relatives here in Australia. Dateline's been told of 18 separate cases of Tamils, Australian citizens, permanent residents or their relatives, who've been kidnapped back in Sri Lanka and held for ransom. Some have been released, but the lives of others still hang in the balance. Nick Lazaridis has investigated 3 Sydney families caught up in this epidemic of abductions. Understandably, they were prepared to talk so long as we didn't reveal their identities.
Ransom was collected within 3 days or 4 days after kidnapping. Now it is almost a year. So what is happening?
Our priority is to first get him out. And I've heard a lot of stories about people disappear in Sri Lanka, never come back, and people find bodies of people everywhere. So we want to pay whatever it is and get him out.
From the time he get home in end of April, he don't talk anything. He don't say much.
So to now, your brother-in-law has never said a word about this?
No.
Until recently, Tamils have lived peacefully with their Sinhalese neighbours in Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo. But in the past 2 years, they've been subject to a dramatic rise in kidnappings, extortion and in some cases murder.
It's an easy way of making money. It's an easy way of inflicting terror in the community. And it's an easy way of ethnic cleansing.
Dr Mano Mahan is a Sydney cardiologist and a leading figure in the Australian Tamil community. He says the kidnapping and disappearances of Tamils has reached epidemic proportions.
This is going on for the last 2 years without any rhyme or reason. And Tamils of Sri Lanka are fed up, they live in fear, and Tamils of Sri Lankan origin who live abroad, who are citizens of other countries, are unable to visit their kith and kin for fear of being abducted, fear of being killed. This is a state of affairs. It's anarchy.
Dr Mahan told Dateline of several disappearances which have had terrible consequences for Tamils living in Australia. He introduced me to 3 men here in Sydney, all Australian citizens, who've had relatives abducted from the streets of Colombo. Concerned for their family's safety, none were prepared to be identified.
On the front door, there was some writing on by chalk, asking her to go to a certain phone booth at a certain time. She'd been there, was waiting, and at the right time there was a call from the phone.
Devon, not his real name, told Dateline his sister's husband was kidnapped, and the kidnappers told her to get a $60,000 ransom from Sydney.
And somebody was talking, not in pure Tamil, not in Sinhalese, sort of in between, speaking Tamil but in a different accent, telling her that they got her husband and demanding for 50 lakh in rupees.
Now, what is 50 lakh in Australian dollars?
50 lakh is, in Australian money, is about $60,000. And she was crying. And
unable to raise so much cash quickly, Devon offered his sister what he could.
So I told her that I'll try and get at least $10,000 or something like that. But she said, no, it's going to be very, very hard. They are going to kill him if we don't do something to start with. Then I asked her to get some time, and I told her that within 1 week I'll try and get some money.
Cobbling together a few high-interest private loans and keeping the entire business a secret from his immediate family here in Sydney, Devon sent a $40,000 ransom to his sister in Sri Lanka. His brother-in-law was released, but refuses to talk about the experience.
My sister tried to, because I told my sister to find out something. She was trying to get something out of him. He don't even say nothing, not even a word. When she start talking about it, he just looks somewhere else and just keep quiet. Most of the time, he don't even talk.
Devon's story had a happy ending, but Dateline met another Australian Tamil family whose relative has not been released even after the ransom was paid.
It's real agony. It's not only one, so many people undergoing. Certainly we would love if Australian government and help at least to find out what is happening.
Murali, not his real name, is still waiting for news of his brother-in-law, an Australian citizen who disappeared in Colombo over a year ago.
The following day, somebody said that he will be released if you all pay a ransom. My brother-in-law came on the cell phone and he said to pay them whatever they are asking. And they asked a large sum of money, in the order of millions in Sri Lankan rupees.
Murali says his family paid the kidnappers more than $1 million to release his brother-in-law, a wealthy businessman. Several months later, he hadn't been released, and the family went to the Sri Lankan government. Murali says the family was told by a government minister that this Tamil paramilitary force, the Karuna Group, was behind the abduction. Last year, Dateline filmed the Karuna Group, which is accused of acting as a proxy force for the government in its war against the Tamil Tigers.